Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our regular committee meeting. Pursuant to Standing Order 81.4, main estimates 2019-20, votes of course 1, 5, 10, 15 and 20 under Department of Fisheries notions referred to the committee on Thursday, April 11th. I'd like to start off by welcoming the Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister, of course, for making himself available today for I believe the Minister is here for an hour and then the officials will stay for the second hour to partake in questioning. I'd like to welcome, of course, the officials. Timothy Sargent, Deputy Minister, Jeffrey Hutchinson, Commissioner of the Canadian Coast Guard, Philippe Morel, Assistant Deputy Minister, Aquatic Ecosystems Sector, Jane O'Donoghue, Assistant Deputy Minister and Chief Financial Officer, Andy Smith, Deputy Commissioner, Strategy and Shipbuilding, Adam Burns, Director General, Fisheries Resource Management, and Mark Waddell, Director General, Fisheries and Licence Policy. Minister, we'll give the floor to you to start off with for your opening remarks. I believe you're going to be handing off the opening remarks to one of the officials, right? When you're ready.
All right, thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. I will give some opening remarks, and then I think Jen will actually just supplement those a little bit. As you noted, I'm accompanied by a number of members of our senior management team. Je présenterai au committee.
I will provide the committee with a brief financial overview of DFO and Coast Guard's 2019-2020 main estimates before speaking of some of the accomplishments of my department.
In 2020 main estimates, the department is seeking $2.994 billion, which represents a $548.4 million increase when compared to the 2018-19 main estimates. The increased spending levels represent new funding for the procurement and conversion of 3 icebreakers for the Coast Guard, including the newest member of the fleet, the CCGS Captain Molly Cool. The main estimates also include $155 million that is directed toward the construction engineering of a Coast Guard offshore oceanographic science vessel, as well as for the purchase of long lead items, which need to be ordered well in advance of the start of construction, which is targeted for the end of 2020. Main estimates also include a significant amount of funding for the Small Craft Harbors program to deliver on its regular work, which is a $92 million annual A-base funding. In addition, it also includes $150 million to deliver on the $250 million budget 2018 funding for small craft harbors. This is important because in 2018, the commercial fishing industry had landings valued at over $5.5 billion. Today, this sector employs over 77,000 workers from coast to coast to coast in harvesting, aquaculture, and processing jobs. Furthermore, fish and seafood continue to be among the largest single food commodities exported by Canada, valued at almost $7 billion annually. The top 3 items, which comprise our main estimates, so commercial icebreaker, small craft harbors, and offshore oceanographic science vessel, each represent 5% of the total 2019-20 estimates, or 15% as a whole. Furthermore, on the overall change of $548.4 million between 2018-19 and 2019-20, these 3 initiatives correspond to $435.5 million, or approximately 80% of the overall increase which the department is experiencing. Following my remarks, my officials will be able to share more specifics on how this funding will be used over the coming months. Monsieur le Président, 10 mois se sont écoulés depuis.
Mr. Chair, it has been a remarkable 10 months since my appointment as Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard.
That has been making decisions and real investments to fight climate change and protect our environment. From coast to coast to coast, whether it is increasing the capacity of our Coast Guard or investing in small craft harbors, the decisions that are made are ensuring that we are protecting our oceans for generations to come and for our communities who depend on them. The Canadian Coast Guard owns and operates more than 120 vessels of various sizes, strategically deployed on all coasts and major inland waterways of the country. In the past 18 months, 6 new small ships have joined the fleet, including search and rescue lifeboats and channel surveying vessels, and we have announced the arrival of 2 more search and rescue lifeboats, the CCGS McIntyre Bay and the CCGS Pachina Bay, to join the West Coast Fleet. The first large ship under the National Shipbuilding Strategy, a specialized offshore fisheries science vessel, named after Sir John Franklin, is expected to be delivered in June. We are strengthening the Coast Guard's authorities to support a more proactive, rapid, and effective response to ship source and mystery source pollution incidents. The Coast Guard responds regularly to pollution incidents, mostly small in scale. However, they also proactively intervene when required to mitigate potential spills. This past fall, the Coast Guard and its partners successfully completed the bulk oil removal of 208.7 cubic meters from the wreck of the Manolis L near Change Islands in Notre Dame Bay, Newfoundland and Labrador. Le gouvernement fait des investissements pour assurer que les femmes et les hommes de la
The government is making investments to ensure that women and men of the Coast Guard have the tools they need to protect our marine environment and ensure the safety of mariners.
critical support to the commercial fishing industry, which in 2017 had landings of over $3.4 billion. As part of Budget 2018, we invested $250 million over 2 years to renew our network of small craft harbors and to work with municipalities to enhance local communities and economies and foster job creation. This is in addition to the $92 million that will be invested in 2019-20 for repairs, maintenance, construction, and dredging at core commercial fishing harbors across this country. Over the past year, Canada has been active and engaged internationally, and one highlight was the G7 summit, where oceans and fisheries were featured as key issues. In addition, we sponsored the first ever Oceans Conference at the Sustainable Blue Economy, where we co-sponsored with Kenya and Japan, which was held in Nairobi. We also established the new DFO and Coast Guard region in the Arctic and signed a memorandum of understanding with the government of Nunavut and the Quiquitani Inuit Association to work together to explore the potential protection of areas in the high Arctic basin, while supporting the development of a conservation economy in the region. We also established an inshore rescue boat station in Rankin Inlet. The government is committed to providing meaningful and effective protection to Canada's land and ocean spaces. To that end, we established an advisory panel on marine protected area standards to consult with Canadians and provide guidance to the government on our approach to marine conservation. During the Nature Champions Summit in Montreal last month, I announced a set of strong, clear standards for Canada's marine conservation network, which will include two distinct forms of protection: marine protected areas and other effective area-based conservation measures such as marine refuges. Nous sommes bien partis pour éteindre.
We are well on our way to meeting the international 10% marine conservation target in 2020. And that is with real protections that will have biodiversity benefits for generations to come.
This includes partnering with Indigenous peoples to respond to marine emergencies, and in the last year we provided marine safety training to 25 members from 17 First Nations in British Columbia. We are also continuing to take action to protect Canada's endangered whales, including South Resident killer whales on the west coast, right whales on the east coast, and belugas in the St. Lawrence. We are working to leverage new research to refine and improve our approaches to managing fisheries in this country, with a resolve to provide needed protections while supporting Indigenous groups, fish harvesters, shippers, and other stakeholders. One of my most important priorities as Minister is restoring important fish stocks across Canada, including Canada's wild salmon populations. As you know, our government last year announced an additional $107 million to support the implementation of the fish stocks provisions that are proposed in Bill C-68. To contribute to better managed fisheries, these resources will increase scientific capacity to do stock assessments, including salmon stock assessments. We also announced the BC Salmon Restoration and Innovation Fund and the Quebec Fisheries Fund, both modeled on the successful Atlantic Fisheries Fund, to support projects focused on supporting stock restoration and resilience through infrastructure investments, promoting science partnerships, and innovation and technology adoption. Ce sont là quelques-unes des nombreuses activités.
These are among many activities that will support our wild salmon policy implementation plan and management of aquaculture over the next 5 years.
Many activities that will support our wild salmon policy implementation plan. Canada's prosperity depends on making sure that the benefits of a growing economy are felt by more and more people, with good, well-paying jobs for Canada's middle class. The government also firmly believes that economic prosperity and the long-term health of our environment can and must go hand in hand. We are continuing to make smart investments that are positioning Fisheries and Oceans Canada and the Canadian Coast Guard to deliver on these priorities for the benefit of all Canadians. And now I would turn it over to Jen to add a couple of extra comments.
Thank you, Minister Wilkinson. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Mon nom est Jen O'Donoghue. Je suis la dirigeante principale des finances.
My name is Jen O'Donoghue, Assistant Deputy Minister and Chief Financial Officer, and we're delighted to be here today to provide you with an overview of the main estimates for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Allowing time for any questions the committee may have. We are in the second year of the new estimates reform process, and its purpose is to improve the alignment between the federal budget and estimates. The President of the Treasury Board tabled interim estimates back on January 28th to ensure departments were able to start the fiscal year. The key change for estimates reforms remains the timing of main estimates, which now follows budgets. The main estimates were tabled on April 11th. As with all supply bills, they are referred to committee where the contents are studied before voting takes place, thus our presence here today. Contrary to last year, itemized budget implementation votes are now included in the departmental vote hierarchies rather than in one single consolidated vote within the Treasury Board Secretariat. Specifically for DFO, items are included under Vote 15 and 20. Similar to last year, Budget 2019 items will only be made available to the regular expenditure vote of the department once they have gone through the scrutiny and due diligence of the Treasury Board Secretariat and are approved by Treasury Board ministers. The department's 1920 main estimates total $2.994 billion, including statutory authorities. This represents an increase of $548 million when compared to the 2018-19 main estimates. As indicated by the minister, the biggest increase, $151 million, is related to the procurement of icebreakers for the Canadian Coast Guard. 3 icebreakers were purchased in August of 2019, and due to timing, this funding was not included in the 2018-19 main estimates. Funding was sought in year via the 2018-19 Supplementary Estimates A. The next large increase in funding is for the renewal of Canada's network of small craft harbours. Budget 2018 announced $250 million, of which $150 million is included in these main estimates. Due to timing as well, year one funding was not included in our 2018-19 main estimates. We also have a $135 million increase in funding for the ongoing engineering work related to the Canadian Coast Guard's offshore oceanographic science vessel. Je vous remercie de m'avoir donné l'occasion d'être ici.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here before you this afternoon to present our main estimates for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Thank you for that. We'll go right to our questioning now to the government side. Mr. Fraser, for 7 minutes or less, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'll be sharing my time with Mr. Morrissey. Minister, thank you so much for being here, and to your officials as well for joining us today. Always a pleasure to have you at our committee. I'd like to start by just touching on one aspect that you mentioned in your presentation regarding small craft harbors. And you're absolutely right to mention the impact that seafood exports in particular has on coastal communities in Atlantic Canada, where I'm from, and most particularly, the lobster landings that happen in southwestern Nova Scotia, for example. Those are critical to the local economy. They're basically the backbone of the entire region's economic growth. We know that climate change is happening, that there's severe effects that can be seen at the wharves when you've got more intense storms. We know that it means that more dredging has to happen. We know as well that the growth of the lobster industry is fueling more people wanting to get into the industry and also having larger vessels, which is creating congestion at many of our small craft harbors. Catches are up, the price is high because of the trade deals that are now in effect, but there's some safety issues. And so small craft harbors has to be a very important part of your department's outlook for the future. I know investments have been made. Our committee made a recommendation that there needs to be a significant increase in the A-based portion of the funding so that planning can happen by your department. I'm wondering if you can comment on the importance of small craft harbors, the investments we've made, and what you see for the future.
Thank you very much for the question. It's obviously something that's very important on the Atlantic coast, but it's also of significance on the Pacific coast, and increasingly is emerging as an issue of importance in the Arctic. The government has recognized the importance of ensuring that we have funding to be able to address some of the issues that you talked about. And so since 2016-17, we've spent almost $680 million in the small craft harbor area. That included $250 million that was allocated in budget 2018 over a 2-year period to ensure that in B-based funding, to ensure that we had sufficient resources to be addressing some of the critical issues. But let me say a couple of other things. On a go-forward basis, we certainly are facing new challenges in the area of small craft harbors. Climate change is certainly a variable that we must account for now, both in terms of the damage that's caused through extreme weather events, the types of construction that we're going to have to think about now on a go-forward basis to ensure that we're preparing any new facilities for that kind of interaction. We have to address the fact that the growth in the aquaculture industry is putting significant additional boats on the water. And as you said, the growth in the size of the average harvester boat, all of which are creating challenges. And so I do think that this is something that we need to continue to look at. This is something that certainly our department is seized with at the present time, is looking forward as to what the requirements are going to be, because the requirements going forward are certainly going to be a bit different than what they have in the past. So significant investments have been made, significant funding going into this critical area, but I am quite cognizant of the fact that we need to reflect on what we need to be able to expect and what we must plan for on a go-forward basis.
Excellent. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Minister, I would suggest, and you've been the guardian of the small craft harbors for the last number of months, but we're seeing the impacts of years and years of funding cuts. I did some of the rough numbers, over 100 million. We're approaching a crisis situation in small craft harbors that will have to be dealt with in the future. But my question is more on a positive one. You were in my riding back in March. You had a chance to look at some innovative projects that we're doing through the Atlantic Fishery Fund, which is extremely important to our small rural coastal communities. They're doing a lot in innovation and creating jobs in these communities, and certainly expanded a lot in the aquaculture side. I would ask you if you could briefly give us your perspective on this particular fund, how you see it going. Is it a fund that you will continue to support in the coming years? Because it has led to a lot of investment in my riding, which is primarily rural and dependent on the fishery.
Yeah, the Atlantic Fisheries Fund, as you will all know, is a $400 million program that is jointly financed by the federal and provincial governments. 70% is federal and 30% is provincial. It is something that's a tool that has allowed us to encourage and foster innovation in the fish harvesting sector, to invest in science, on-the-ground science, that many of the fish harvesters feel is important that we actually get done. And I would tell you that it has been highly successful in the early implementation. So successful that we took that model and copied it and have launched a similar fund, smaller because of course the size of the fishery is smaller, in British Columbia and a fund in Quebec. We believe that we are seeing significant results across all 4 Atlantic provinces that are beneficial from an economic perspective for harvesters and coastal communities, and we are committed to moving forward with that on a go-forward basis, for sure.
1 minute, I think. Minister, thank you for your comments on that. I want to go back briefly to small craft harbors, and you recognize well, we're seeing significant impacts in my home province, Prince Edward Island, from climate change. This year, dredging is being required at small craft harbor ports that didn't require that before. So how is the department going to respond to that growing challenge, which is now very real, and we're seeing it on a yearly basis?
So it is an important issue. I know you're speaking specifically, I guess, about Malpeque Bay and some of the challenges there. There are a number of cases where the dredging issues are increasingly important. Although there are also other harbors where it's simply maintenance that's required as a result of climate change-related weather events. And as I said in my response to the earlier question, the government has brought forward significant resources to invest in small craft harbors as a $250 million in budget 2018 to be spread over 2 years. But I think we are very cognizant of the fact that the requirements in small craft harbors are going to have to be assessed in light of the newer challenges that we are facing, one of which is the climate issue, which certainly is creating issues that we haven't seen before that we are going to have to be able to manage. But also some of the economic drivers that we're seeing with respect to the growth in aquaculture and the growth in the size of many of the boats. So that is an active conversation within the department at the present time, and we would endeavor to come forward with a view about what will be required on a go-forward basis.
Okay. Thank you. Now to Mr. Doherty for 7 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, we understand that Irving is trying to sell to DFO 2 of their Arctic offshore patrol ships. We also understand that Canadian Coast Guard did a study of these $800 million ships and determined that they're not suitable for Canadian Coast Guard use, either as Arctic-class icebreakers nor as buoy tenders or for search and rescue duties. Minister, will you please provide this committee a copy of the report by close of business this Tuesday?
So I would say, first and foremost, issues around procurement are actually the purview of the Minister of Public Procurement.
Minister, would you
if you'd
provide
let
the
me
copy
finish
of
my
this
answer, I'd let you finish your
It's just
question.
yes or no.
I let you finish your question. If you would let me
Well,
finish
it's actually
my
my
answer.
time. Sorry, Minister.
Okay.
So would you provide this committee a copy of this report by close of business?
The issues related to procurement are the purview of the Minister of Procurement.
All right. Minister, it appears that the OOSV has been delayed even further, forcing the Canadian Coast Guard to do another refit of the ancient CCGS Hudson. The refit was originally contracted for $10 million, commencing in February to July 15th, 2019. We understand that this work period will be extended by several months and by several $1 million into at least late fall of this year or beyond. Will the Minister please report by the end of the day Thursday how much money has been spent on the CCGS Hudson since 2012 and how much above the current $10 million contract has Canadian Coast Guard budgeted to repair this 57-year-old ship?
So I'm happy to ask the Coast Guard officials that are with me here today to respond specifically. But there are normal procedures for reporting these kinds of things. Certainly, we are working to ensure that the Coast Guard has the capabilities that it actually requires, whether that's vessel life extension or new ships. And we are going to ensure that the Coast Guard has what it needs to do its job. And so I can certainly ask the Commissioner to respond specifically to.
Certainly be happy to work with the clerk of the committee to provide a summary of Hudson expenditures from, it was 2012, Mr. Doherty, is that correct?
That's correct.
In a time frame that we work out with the clerk.
Thank you. Minister, the Canadian Coast Guard has a need for interim light icebreaker. We understand the Minister received an unsolicited proposal for a Canadian registered light icebreaker. The MV Arctica Borg for charter or purchase. We also understand that this vessel is available in Vancouver and can serve the Western Arctic this summer, where Canadian Coast Guard has many operational gaps, including the inability to operate in shallow waters or readily respond to grounding or oil spill. We also understand that Canada has until the end of this month to respond to its offer or lose this vessel to a company from Russia. Also interested in the vessel. Given our extreme shortage of ice-breaking assets, will the Minister please advise why it's not acting on this opportunity and why the bureaucracy refuses to even view this vessel?
Well, first, I would challenge the last part of your statement. That we are not extremely short of ice-breaking capacity. That is simply false. And I'm certainly hoping that you're not intending to say that we should be skipping a process for large-scale procurement. So we are going to work through the process to ensure that the needs that are required of the Canadian Coast Guard are met through a process.
So you're acting on this?
So we are ensuring that we are moving forward in a proper and appropriate
Thank you.
process.
Minister, the construction of the CCGS Diefenbaker has been deferred indefinitely. Canada's only large icebreaker, Arctic icebreaker, the Louis Saint Laurent, is over 53 years old. Can the Minister advise why the government is not seeking out Davy Shipbuilding to either build this ship or directly or subcontract to Seaspan?
The Canadian Coast Guard has done an assessment of all of its requirements on a go-forward basis. We have certainly spent lots of time on that, as well as options with respect to how we will fill the various needs that we have over time. We are in the process of
Minister,
completing that work.
Can we get a copy of that assessment, the marine assessment, then that the Canadian Coast Guard?
We are in the process still of completing that work. At some point, it certainly will be public.
Minister, members of this committee have noticed that the Canadian Coast Guard has had 2 recent commissioners who have not attended the Canadian Coast Guard College. Can you tell us when the Canadian Coast Guard will get a commissioner who has actually attended the Canadian Coast Guard College?
That's a pretty cheesy question. I am fully comfortable that the commissioner and the senior management of the Coast Guard are fully capable and equipped to do their jobs.
2.5.
This is to the Deputy Minister. Mr. Sergeant, the department made a decision to revise the schedule of the OOSV. Will you table with the clerk by the end of Wednesday the full and complete operational and financial impact of this decision, including all the positives and negatives, and the firm schedule for the delivery of this vessel, as well as the total cost?
So I'm the Deputy Minister, not the Assistant Deputy Minister?
I said Deputy Minister. Thanks.
Okay, that's great. I'll ask the Commission to respond to that.
We'll be happy to provide the information that we're able to provide that answers your question. Some of it, I can tell you, Mr. Doherty, the budget, for example, is under review. We won't have a final cost.
Thank you.
Construction contract, so we won't have a final date, but we can provide the implications of the rescheduling decision, programmatic decision that supports shipbuilding across the board.
Thank you.
And we'll work with the clerk on the appropriate timing for that.
Thanks. Mr. Sergeant, the department has agreed to push the date further back for construction and delivery of the Polar-class icebreaker, the John Diefenbaker. Will you be able to table the clerk, with the clerk of this committee by end of Wednesday, the date you expect to receive delivery of the Diefenbaker, and what are the full operational and financial impacts of this decision?
I'll once again turn to the Commissioner.
I think I can provide the same answer, that we'll work with the
thank
clerk
you.
to provide what
Then I will,
information we're available to.
Mr. Hutchinson, I'll direct these questions to you since Mr. Sergeant can't answer them. Will you table with the clerk by the end of the day Wednesday any and all briefings, notes, or memos you reviewed related to the refresh of the national shipbuilding strategy?
First, we don't have an initiative that we refer to as a refresh of the national shipbuilding strategy. Second, if there were an initiative of that nature, I think I would probably be in a position where much of what you're looking for would be subject to confidence, primarily cabinet confidence. We would like to provide what we're able to with respect to your question, sir. Perhaps this is another piece that we could discuss with the clerk in terms of the appropriate scope.
Thank you.
Time, I guess. Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Before I move on to Mr. Jans, I would ask, the interpreters are having some trouble keeping up when people are speaking really fast, so if they could be cognizant of that, to cooperate and let the interpreters keep up with the conversation. Mr. Jans, for 7 minutes or less, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the Minister for being here today, and all of his staff and team for the hard work that you do. Really appreciate all of you being here today. I'm going to start with the Ocean Protection Plan. In 2017-2018, there was the shortfall was $63 million in terms of money allocated and unspent. And we don't have the numbers from 2018-2019 yet, but were you able to meet the targets that were scheduled in the allotment for the Ocean Protection Plan in 2018-2019, and where are you sitting right now in terms of the first month of the 2019-2020 schedule?
So to ensure that you get the most accurate information, I will ask Jen to speak to that.
So in terms of the Ocean Protection Plan, there have been over $800 million in announcements. So work is ongoing.
Sorry, announcements are great, but how much has been spent? There's been $1.5 billion, really, that's been announced.
So in terms of spending,
Yeah.
although the numbers for 18-19 aren't final, we're still closing the books. We're now at approximately $325 million spent to date.
scheduled, Ms.
So
Donahue?
it is a little bit lower than the initial allocation. Once the projects were actually planned out, some of the larger capital projects are taking a little bit longer.
How much is a little bit?
We'll have to go back and actually look at that number for you.
Okay.
But they are still on track to achieve results within the 5-year timeframe.
So you can get that to the committee? Great.
Okay.
Will you be able to also provide the committee with like a list of the initiatives, including information such as geographic location, amount of funding, and description of the projects that have been funded by the Ocean Protection Plan?
In terms of funding?
Yep.
Yes, we can work with the clerk to provide that.
And not just announced, but money spent as well. So if we can get those separated, that'd be great. The question for the minister, just want to follow up on the Ocean Protection Plan. Does the technology to clean up Dilibit spill exist?
There's obviously a lot of science that goes into answering that question. And some of that comes from scientists within the government. Some of it comes from reports such as the Council of the Royal Society report that was done a few years ago, which was actually led by a scientist from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. What I would tell you is for any hydrocarbon that's spilled in a marine or an aqueous environment, the most critical issue is how quickly you get to the spill. That is the amount.
I just want to know the answer.
And I would tell you that in the work that's been done to date, diluted bitumen behaves very, very similarly in a marine environment to other forms of conventional crude. So whether you can clean them up depends on how much you can clean up depends on how quickly you get there, but certainly the technology exists to ensure that you can actually do most of it. In the context, for example, in Burnaby, when there was a spill from land that went into the ocean, there was almost 90+% that was cleaned up.
Okay, we'll have a lot more to say, I'm sure, about that. In terms of one thing I will definitely commend the government on, the increased support for the Indigenous participation in commercial fisheries. I hope that will be targeted to the Takwiak fishery and the House It versus Canada case, and that there's going to be resolution to that. Not looking for a comment, just wanted to state that. In terms of aquaculture, the future of salmon aquaculture is closed containment. We know that. The technology exists, it's economically feasible, and the prospective jobs and economic opportunities are immense. A recent report published by the Fraser Basin Council concludes that 4,000 jobs would be created during the construction phase of recirculating aquaculture systems, facilities, and an additional 2,685 full-time long-term jobs would be created through the operation and fish processing from land-based aquaculture facilities located on Vancouver Island. So the question to the minister is, will the government follow the Washington example and transition the salmon farming to safe closed containment?
So, as you know, we have taken significant steps to further evolve the whole approach with respect to aquaculture, and that involves moving towards area-based management. It involves a much more rigorous framework for risk assessment. And it involves studying the issues around closed containment. The Fraser Basin Council report was a very interesting and useful report. What it did show, though, was that the internal rates of return for these types of facilities are extremely low at this stage. And so we need to do more work, either to validate those results or to find ways to improve the economic position of closed containment farms. I think we would all be interested in seeing some form of transition, but it needs to be an economically viable one. We are presently working with the government of British Columbia on a study that is helping to inform policy in that regard.
And Washington State decided to move forward. Are you consulting?
Washington State made a specific decision with respect to open net pen farms. That doesn't mean they have a closed containment industry.
They're moving away from it. They've made it very clear that that's what they're doing.
Yep.
So I'm hoping, and we're encouraging you to do the same. Will you commit to working with the province to save the remaining endangered interior Fraser salmon and steelhead and immediately establish a test selective fishery on the Fraser?
We are working very closely with the province of BC on issues relating to interior salmon and steelhead. Those are both critical issues that need to be addressed, and the province is very much engaged because land management and agricultural use are critical pieces of all of that.
You're here in this allotment. You're looking for funding for the BC Salmon Restoration Funds, which obviously I've been calling, and we've been calling for that money to get out the door. Will some of that money go to hatcheries as well? Most hatcheries haven't seen an increase in over 30 years. And we didn't see it in the coastal restoration funds. We haven't seen it so far. Will the minister be able to speak to that?
So hatcheries are not the primary focus of the work on the Salmon Restoration and Innovation Fund. As you will have seen from the terms of reference, it's fairly broad, but the focus is very much on restoration. We certainly are open to conversations around hatcheries, and we will be having those at tables focused on things like the Fraser River Chinook. But I would say to you, the issue around hatcheries is a controversial one. There are certainly areas in which hatcheries have a role to play, but you have to be very careful from a scientific perspective as to the balance between wild and hatchery-produced fish in areas where the wild stocks remain healthy. And that is less of a concern in areas where you have close to extirpated the wild stocks, but there is a scientific issue that we need to work through, and we are going to be doing that with First Nations, commercial fishers, rec fishers, and environmental organizations.
Sure. And
Thank you, Mr. Jans. Your time is up. We'll now go to the government side. Mr. Finnegan, please, for 7 minutes or less.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be splitting my time with my colleague, Mr. Hardy. So thank you, Minister, for being here, and thank you also for dropping into my riding last fall. It was very welcome by all the recreational and Indigenous communities that we've had a chance to visit. And of course, on the Mighty Miramichi, the Atlantic salmon is what's king. And you know, with all the diminishing counts that we see every year, what is your department doing to ensure the species remains in our water as a source of food and income for generations to come, but also, you know, for our First Nations communities? And also, are we? I know we're moving towards traditional knowledge a little bit and partnership with First Nation, which I'm very happy to see. So maybe I could have your comments on, you know, what we're doing to protect this species. Thank you.
Sure. The issues affecting both Atlantic and Pacific salmon are not simple. They are complex and they require a lot of work and thought, not the least of which being the impacts of climate change. Climate change for a species which is typically a cold water species becomes increasingly problematic in rivers and estuaries that become increasingly warm at times of year when often when spawning is taking place. We are committed very much to working collaboratively with all of the partner organizations to conserve and protect Atlantic salmon. That includes the Atlantic Salmon Federation and a range of other organizations, including many of the organizations that we met with when I was in your riding. Through the Atlantic Salmon Research Joint Venture Forum, DFO experts are working with leading researchers from conservation groups, academia, and other governments under a more unified Canadian Atlantic salmon research agenda. So we're doing a lot of work with respect to research. This past year, the Atlantic Salmon Research Joint Venture hosted a signature event in Quebec City, which was really focused on delineating path forward for some of the issues facing Atlantic salmon. Some of the issues are obviously international, so we are working with NASCO to find ways to reduce Greenland's annual catch, which has been a big issue, and we are going to continue to work on that. And of course, we need to continue to focus on projects that relate to things like habitat restoration. And while it wasn't in your riding, I was in Nova Scotia last week to announce 2 Coastal Restoration Fund projects, one on the St. Mary's River, one on the Rest River, that are focused primarily on salmon restoration. So it's a comprehensive approach. It's absolutely a priority for this government. We recognize how important Atlantic salmon are to coastal communities, to Indigenous communities all across Atlantic Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, and I'll share my time with Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Finnegan. Thank you, Mr. Minister. No end of tough calls for you to make, and certainly one of them had to do with the closures on Chinook salmon out at the West Coast. I got a message from a family who invested quite heavily in a boat last year, and they've seen their fishing window shortened by about 6 weeks this year because of the closures. They are wondering if there's a chance to review the balance, I guess, of the pain or the impact between the commercial fishers and the commercial recreational sector, you know, mainly the lodges and guides, etc., to make sure that, again, there will be sacrifices, but they need to be equitable. Can you comment on that?
Sure. As I mentioned in talking about Atlantic salmon, clearly the issues involved here are complex and you need a comprehensive approach. With respect to Fraser River Chinook, which are listed, 12 of 13 are listed or in the process of listing in terms of being threatened. We have brought or are in the process of bringing forward Bill C-68 to strengthen protections that were lost under the previous government. We committed $142 million to habitat restoration, which is something the rec fishers talk about a lot, is the need for governments to actually spend on restoring habitat that's been destroyed. We announced in the fall $107 million for investments in the stock provisions part of the Fisheries Act to help us to do more stock assessment and those kinds of things to better manage the fisheries. We have convened with the University of British Columbia a symposium on predation by seals and sea lions, which is another topic of conversation. And we have indicated to the rec fishers that we are open to conversations around hatcheries and marked fisheries in a multi-stakeholder forum where we can surface some of the issues and have those conversations. But we also need to ensure that a sufficient number of these fish are getting back to the spawning grounds, that they will continue to survive and ultimately to recover. The restrictions that were put into place a few weeks ago were to do exactly that. Those restrictions were as stringent for the commercial fishery as they were for the recreational fishery. And in some respects, you could argue even more stringent for the commercial fishery. We have endeavored to try to ensure that we only have non-retention limits in place while the Fraser River stocks are in the relevant area, and those are opened again as soon as those stocks are gone. Before those stocks have left, it's not a closure of the fishery, it's simply non-retention. You can catch and release, but you must release. And so it is part of a comprehensive plan to ensure that we are not knowingly putting these Fraser River Chinook on a path to extinction. That would not be something that's wise, and I wouldn't be doing my job appropriately if I allowed that to happen.
The committee dropped a report in Parliament last week, our 21st, on the whole issue of sharing risks and rewards in the West Coast fishery, which seem to have drifted badly out of balance. I know early days and you've got a lot on your plate, but I'm wondering if you've had any first blush reactions to that report.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the committee for the work. It's certainly very interesting and I think very thoughtful recommendations with respect to a range of issues on the West Coast that are quite different than they are on the East. I have met with many stakeholders who have wanted to talk about these issues, and certainly we have listened and we are thinking within the department on some of these issues, but what I have told them is we're not going to launch a major project on this while the committee itself is doing the study. We are going to wait for the committee's report. We are going to consider the committee's report. We will obviously respond to the committee's report, and we will do so in a thoughtful way. So certainly there are a lot of issues that have been raised, as even people like Melanie Sonnenberg, who I'm sure you have met with many times, will tell you it's very difficult to unscramble the omelet. But certainly the issues around economic benefits, some of the other broader issues that were raised in the report are things that we're going to think very seriously about.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Now back to the Conservative side. Mr. Arnold for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here and all of the officials for being here today as well. We received a briefing on some of the numbers in the estimates. One that really piqued my interest was $10.2 million for the disposal of small craft harbors, an increase from $500,000 previously. That's a very significant increase. Is it the intention of the department to divest itself of a number of small craft harbors? If so, how many, and where would they be?
So that is certainly, yes, public information. The small craft harbors is really focused on harbors that where there are commercial fisheries and support of the commercial fisheries. And so there was a decision a number of years ago that there were some small craft harbors that would be divested, typically to community-based organizations who wish to accept them. And there are case-by-case examples. But in terms of the numbers and why the number has gone up, maybe I can ask Jen.
So then the number reflects the plans in 2019-20, but Mark probably has more detail in terms of the actual.
Before the end of the week, please, rather than chew up a whole bunch of time here now. Thank you. Minister, I want to question you a little bit on aquatic invasive species and the program. The commissioner's report that came out a few weeks back basically identified very significant problems with the aquatic invasive species program, the fisheries protection program, I believe it is, that it works under. In her report, she referred to the fisheries minister's mandate letter and stated that the protection funding increases for the 7 new fisheries officers to be deployed across the Arctic region and Quebec region by the 2021 fiscal year. This aligns with the priority of the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans Canadian Coast Guard mandate letter to increase protection of freshwater resources in the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence River, and Lake Winnipeg basins. However, as funding was significantly less than Fisheries and Oceans Canada identified needs, the department will make risk-based decisions regarding the resources allocated to protect fish and fish habitat from aquatic invasive species. Minister, we've seen cases over the past couple of years of boats entering provinces that are infested with zebra and quagga mussels. Obviously, the system is failing. The commissioner's report shows how and why the system is failing. What is being done within the department to correct those failures?
So thank you for the question. Certainly the issue of aquatic invasive species is an important one, and it is an increasingly important one as we move forward in an era where climate change is changing the nature of the ability for these species to both come here and to survive and thrive. And that is certainly why addressing climate change in a thoughtful and substantive way is a very important thing to do. But with respect to aquatic invasive species, there were a couple things with respect to the Commissioner's report. The first is we accept her recommendations and certainly will be working to meet many of the comments she made. But it is also important to note that both the scope and the timing of her report excluded a number of things that have been done. Her report, because she is a federal agency, also does not focus on the fact that aquatic invasive species is a shared federal provincial jurisdictional issue where you need to work with the provinces. In Budget 2017, we allocated $43.8 million over 5 years, so a significant increase in funding.
But that over 80% of that went to 2 species in the Great Lakes, leaving the rest of the country with less than 20% spread across the rest of the country.
And so a significant increase in funding relative to what had been funded under the previous government. And we recognize that more will need to be done. Part of that needs to be done through a federal provincial framework that we have been working with all of the fisheries ministers across the country to develop. And we intend to ensure that this is an issue that gets attention going forward. We said that in the response to the Commissioner.
Is the funding sufficient?
As I said to you, we accept the recommendations of the Commissioner, and we are working to ensure that we are addressing all of them.
Okay. I'll move on to another subject here about the restrictions on top of restrictions that seem to be coming along here. DFO's webpage for the Salmon Enhancement Program contains information about the state of the Pacific salmon runs and states, and I quote, "Many individual runs are still threatened by too many fishermen and too little habitat." Meanwhile, in a news story, May 10th, quoted Liberal MP Pamela Goldsmith-Jones as stating that, and I quote, "Anglers are as interested in conservation as anyone, but aren't accepting that they create a risk to salmon mortality." Do you agree with your department's webpage and your Liberal colleague that it is the anglers who are to blame for the state of Pacific salmon stocks?
Very short answer, please.
No, I think that this is, as I said, a comprehensive issue. It's industrial development over long periods of time. It's climate change. It's the management of the fishery, and we need to ensure that we're taking a comprehensive approach to address all of those issues, which is exactly what we have done.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. I'll now go to Mr. Rogers for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here, and to all of your officials. Minister, recently Clearwater Seafoods signed an agreement with several communities, actually 14 Mi'kmaq communities in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador, on the future of the surf climb industry. This agreement fulfills commitment to reconciliation and keeps jobs in my riding in the town of Grand Bank and on the Burin Peninsula. I have followed this file closely and worked with all involved, particularly the local union and Clearwater. I'm wondering if your department has reviewed this agreement, and where do you see the future of the surf climb industry going, keeping in mind the economic importance of the surf clam to Grand Bank and the Burin Peninsula?
Thank you for the question. I certainly remain dedicated to ensuring that the process to award the fourth surf clam license results in meaningful and measurable direct and indirect benefits for Indigenous peoples. I certainly appreciate the efforts that Clearwater has gone to include multiple Indigenous communities in the proposal that they brought forward. I have met with Clearwater and had a chance to talk to them about their report. I see this very much as a positive development in the context of the overall path to reconciliation. We will take the time we need to evaluate this proposal and both advantages and disadvantages and look at what options there may be before we come to a determination. But I think that it was very positive in terms of the work that's been done between industry and Indigenous communities in that relevant area.
Thank you, Minister, and I want you to know that I have already indicated I fully support this proposal. It keeps jobs in my riding. Mr. Minister, earlier this spring, there were proposed cuts of up to 30% in the crab quotas in Newfoundland and Labrador. During that time, I met with hundreds of fish harvesters throughout my riding in the most impacted areas, and there was a severe concern about cuts of this size. I was pleased to see the size of these cuts reduced. In this particular instance, I met with many harvesters who said their catch rates were excellent last year, and so far this year they're even better, they're reporting to me. I believe fish harvesters need to be consulted before the precautionary approach is administered. So could you comment on the process behind the precautionary approach, its implementation, the way in which local harvesters and knowledge will be incorporated into this process?
Thank you for the question. Certainly, we are committed to the use of the precautionary approach in fisheries decision-making. It's certainly a key component of managing these fisheries in a sustainable way. But it is something, obviously, that stakeholders, and in particular fish harvesters, need to have involvement as we go forward. And so to ensure that we are supporting and that everyone is supporting the ongoing sustainability of the fishery, which is in everyone's interests, the department has initiated a working group that involves Indigenous peoples, commercial fishers, and other stakeholder representatives to develop a formal precautionary approach framework for the fishery, including reference points and harvest control rules. That table has been up and running. It has been working very well to date. It is, in my mind, a model of how we can actually ensure that we are working together on a go-forward basis, and I look forward to the output of the work that the working group is doing.
Minister, I appreciate that answer, and I really want to emphasize the importance of having harvesters' knowledge being an integral part of anything that we do going forward in this industry.
A minute left.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought you were saying to me I was done. All right, thank you. Minister, the harvesters in the two particular areas that I got a lot of recommendations from and information from, both report in Bonavista Bay and Trinity Bay in my riding that the crab quotas this year, or the harvest has been tremendous. It's been plentiful, and it's been quick, and they've done extremely well. So I want you to know that as you talk to scientists and talk to people in the department going forward, that you keep those that information in mind that the harvesters are bringing to my attention.
I will do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Now to Mr. Calkins for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, thanks for being here. You spoke about money in the budget for fisheries enhancement, particularly on the West Coast. And the British Columbia Salmon Restoration and Innovation Fund talks about increasing productivity. You mentioned in your opening remarks and through other conversations that you've had here that basically there's nothing new on the front for hatcheries. Is that correct?
What I said is that hatcheries are a tool from a science perspective that you need to use in a thoughtful way.
I just want to know from the
and so you want to make sure that you're not overwhelming the wild genetic stock.
Yeah,
it's a process that you need to be thoughtful about, and a tool you need to be thoughtful about its usage.
I guess let me just ask you a question then that doesn't platitude my sense of knowledge of fisheries and aquatic sciences with my zoology degree. Are you spending more money in the budget on fisheries, yes or no, on hatcheries, yes or no?
So as I say, the conversation around hatcheries is one we will be
So
going
is there more
through
money-
at a table.
is
The
there-
one area where we have actually put more money into fisheries relates to the South Resident Killer Whale, where we are enhancing the Chilliwack hatchery to provide more stock for the
So
whales.
Chilliwack has to go through the lake in order to get there. Inch Creek and Capilano don't have that same set of obstacles, and they're not
And
running
there
at
is
capa-
capacity within the hatchery. The fish that come out of that hatchery go into the areas
Yeah.
where the South Resident Killer Whale forage. There are a whole range of reasons. If you would like the science behind it, I'm more than happy to provide
I already know. I just don't know why you're not investing in it.
I just said we are.
Well, but they're not running at capacity, so why not?
I just said we are.
They're not running. I was just there. I just visited both those hatcheries. They're
And
not
we
running at
are
capacity
putting money
for
as
Chinooks.
part of the Whales Initiative to ensure
okay.
that we are providing the
Is there
South Resident
anything
Killer
in the
Whales with
estimates to
food eat.
increase the number of spawning channels for Chinook salmon?
That is certainly part of the purview of the Salmon Innovation Restoration Fund.
Okay, but nothing. So
There's $142 million in historic investment in salmon habitat restoration done by the government of British Columbia and the federal government. It has
that's
never
not-
been done in the history of British Columbia.
sounds great in a news release. I'm just
It is
asking, is
good.
there actually anything going to be done actually on the ground? Is there any new spawning channels?
Hey, we will have announcements to make with respect to the first projects out of that fund by June.
Anything on the sense of predator control?
As I said, there is a symposium we are organizing with the University of British Columbia to bring together all stakeholders to have a conversation around seals and sea lions.
Okay, so really what you're saying is for $107 million, there's no new hatchery capacity. There is going to be discussions at a symposium with a bunch of academics, and there may be announcements coming for spawning channels, and there is a complete closure of salmon, Chinook salmon fisheries, going to cost the commercial sport fishing industry anywhere from 2 to 300 or 2 to 500 million, depending on who you believe. I already know of complete lodges and guiding services that have completely shut down and lost all of their businesses already on Vancouver Island. And we've got $107 million is what it's costing them. You're taking money out of their pocket to basically tell them that they're shut down and out of business. And I haven't heard anything from you about a compensation program or a package to offset any of the revenue that's been lost by any of these commercial fishermen. There was no way that you were going to reconsider allowing these people to catch the transient salmon that are in the area other than they're in the sounds, and you realize you're going to put all the fishing pressure in the sounds this summer and completely decimate those populations. You know that's what's going to happen, right, Minister?
So there are quite a number of things that are just not correct in terms of what you said. There is no complete closure. There's no complete closure anywhere. There is a catch and release fishery, even while the Fraser Chinook are in the area.
Nobody pays $4,000.
The $107 million is actually
pays
associated with
$4,000 for catch and release
C-68, which are to implement the stock assessment provisions within the bill. They don't have anything to do with habitat restoration. That's $142 million partnering with the government of BC. We have put in place the most comprehensive approach to addressing the decline in Fraser Chinook in the history of British Columbia. It is something that needs to be done. If you are somebody who believes that these fish need to be saved, I, for one, do.
The Mega Pacific Hatchery on Central Lake in Vancouver Island has the capacity to do 12 separate strains.
Talk about the science with you.
They have the capacity. to
More
do
than
12
happy to
separate
talk about the
strains.
science with you.
Why is the department not funding any?
I am
fisheries
more than
enhancement
happy to
at
discuss the
Mega
science with you. I think I've answered that question in terms of hatcheries. I am more than happy to talk about the science with you.
Well, then it would be a one-sided conversation because I'm the guy with the science background, Minister. So I already know the science. I'm asking you why the funding's not there and why the department is not actually investing the money at that particular hatchery that can do 12 strains, 12 different imprints on Chinook salmon, and it's sitting there.
I think I've answered that question many times. There are issues around the hatchery relate to the dilution of wild stock, and so you have to be thoughtful about how you use the tool. And while you may have a zoology degree, within the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, there are hundreds of marine biologists and zoologists who provide advice and work on this every day.
And they're telling me to ask you these questions.
Thank you, Mr. Calkins. Now back to the government side. Mr. Fraser, please, for 5 minutes or less.
Yep, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to turn, Minister, to the Atlantic Fisheries Fund. There's a component of the Atlantic Fisheries Fund that deals with partnering with industry on scientific research that is so important to understanding what's going on in the oceans with our fish stock. And I know that under the former government that there were cuts made to scientific research. There were research libraries closed that contained important data to understand the background so that plans could be made to ensure a healthy, thriving stock for future generations of fish harvesters. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the Atlantic Fisheries Fund and the work that is affording industry to work with government on getting and collecting good data.
Yeah, it's an important tool. Certainly, the reinvestment in science and the scientific capacity of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans is extremely important. It was the department that was most thoroughly brutalized from a scientific capacity by the Harper government. We have hired about 300 scientists additional to restore the capacity within the department. We have invested significant sums to ensure that the science on which we are making fisheries management decisions is sound. But it's also important that we are reaching out to ensure that we hear the priorities of fish harvesters, that we are able to utilize some of their expertise, and that's fish harvesters, but it's also academic institutions and others. And the Atlantic Fisheries Fund, through the pillar relating to science and science investments, allows us to do exactly that.
Right. I'd like to turn for a moment to safety on the water, and fishermen obviously deserve to come home at the end of the day like anybody else. And there's been far too many examples of tragedies on the waters. The Coast Guard does a good job patrolling our coast and working with industry to keep fishers safe. I know investments made in the Coast Guard. I'm wondering if you can talk about the safety aspect and how those have been improved under our government.
Well, there are probably a number of elements to that, but certainly part of that relates to initiatives under the Oceans Protection Plan, which have allowed us to invest in more in response capacity, including, for example, the reopening of a number of Coast Guard bases that were closed under the previous government. That includes the Kitsilano Coast Guard base in Vancouver, but it also includes a number of facilities on the Atlantic coast. And so the investments made to ensure that we have the ability to respond to issues and incidents that fish harvesters have, that to ensure that we can respond to pollution incidents that may happen in the waters, is definitely something that has been a significant focus of the Oceans Protection Plan.
Very good, and I believe that brings us to our time that the minister was here.
I don't know,
Till
Minister,
4:30, so.
You got any minutes left, or? I was hoping to get to the NDP for a couple of minutes.
Okay, sure, if it's just 2 minutes. Sure.
3 minutes is what I was told, thank you. Just when can we expect a response from the government for the West Coast Fisheries sharing risks and benefits report? Do you have a timeline?
Maybe I can turn to my deputy.
We don't have a timeline as yet. I mean, we're really taking the time that it needs to analyze that report, but we are actively looking at it right now.
You know that we oppose the modernization of the so-called modernization of the MCTS centers. Closures in Comox, Ucluelet in Vancouver was meant to save money. My understanding is there's lots of overtime. Has it saved any money?
And maybe I should ask the Commissioner.
I actually have the Deputy Commissioner of Operations here. He can answer that question better than I can, Mr. Chair, if he'd be allowed to come to the table to speak to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you asked money that was saved with the MCT.
Has it saved money?
Yes, it did.
How much?
The exact number, we could provide a letter, but it's in.
Can you get that to the committee?
Oh yes.
Okay,
oh, yes.
I'd like to get
and
it.
it's in millions.
Over the last few years and each year broken down. Can you
Yes,
do that?
we
okay,
have that.
Thank you. Just one more comment. Kennedy Lake in my riding had not a single recorded sockeye salmon return last year. It's the first time in our history. We've got fishers that are out of work. They haven't been given EI, no compensation. Area G trawlers still haven't got their compensation from the Pacific Salmon Treaty. You've announced $17 million here, and we're in a crisis with our fish. How did you come up with that number? Because, you know, communities are looking for a lot more, and you know how desperate it is that we've got to get money injected into restoration, into our communities. We talked about enhancement. We may not agree on that piece, but we desperately need more than this and sooner than later, and $17 million isn't even close to what we're expecting.
Well, with respect to restoration, I mean, that's exactly what the $142 million is intended to do, is to provide funding for community groups on the ground to engage in restoration-related work. I think the $17 million you're talking about is the Pacific Salmon Treaty
yes,
funds?
that's correct, yeah.
And so we are looking at that in the context of a range of different applications for it on a go-forward basis.
We just can't have that money sitting there when it's meant to do exactly this. And these fishers are, people are losing their houses right now. And they can't wait till August 20th to open a fishery, and not get anything in between now and then. So I'm hoping you'll come back with something sooner than later.
Just to clarify, it's not August 20th, though. I mean, the catch and release fishery is open the whole way through. For some areas, it's July 15th, and for some, it's August 1st.
The commercial fleet.
The commercial fleet in the north.
Fleet's in trouble. And
the commercial fleet in the north is August 20th.
And there just hasn't been any offering from the government. I'm hoping that you're going to do something immediately to support these fishers and their families. It's a part of our culture and our coast, and it's important that we do everything we can. And
Look,
I haven't seen anything.
I totally recognize that, and it's certainly something that is obviously a cause for lots of concern. I don't minimize the impact in any way.
And I brought a lot of concerns and ideas to you.
Thank you, Mr. Johns.
But we're hoping you can answer that. So thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Minister, for making yourself available today. I understand the officials are going to stay for the next hour. So
all right, thank you.
Continue on with questioning. So we'll suspend for a moment while the Minister is saying his goodbyes. Okay, we'll start again, get into the next hour. I will remind everyone that we are extending for a little bit for some committee business at the end. We're going to extend for 15 minutes or so. So to the questioning for the officials from the Liberal side, Mr. Fraser, for 7 minutes or less.
Sure, thanks very much. So just picking up on the last exchange that I had with the Minister regarding investments in the Coast Guard. I understand that there's a number of investments that have been made over the last couple of years to enhance the safety profile of the Canadian Coast Guard in order to keep fishers on the water safe. I'm wondering if you could go into perhaps some details about some of those things. I know, for example, in the estimates, I believe there's 40 emergency tow kits. Are there other similar types of investments that have been made that will be important in order to keep fishers safe while on the water?
Absolutely. I'll turn it over to the Commissioner for more detail.
Thank you very much for that question. We have made a range of investments in improving on-water safety. So we had contracts for 12 search and rescue boats. As you may know, under the OPP, that was increased to 20 search and rescue lifeboats. Those boats are coming into service, and I can tell you that there's never been a shipbuilding project in the Coast Guard that people are more proud of because of the capability of those boats. Because of the investments in comprehensive review, we've been able to reassure ourselves that our frontline people are trained and at the ready. So we have restored training dollars where they had been there was a period of time where we felt like we were putting our training dollars into our gas tanks, and now the training program reinvigorated. As you referred to, there's the deployment so far of 49 emergency tow kits. 25 of those, let me rephrase that, 25 large vessels will be equipped with emergency tow kits. I rephrase it because in some cases a ship could have more than one. But 49 of them have been deployed so far. That number will soon exceed 60. So they are both land-based and ship-based. And we have 2 emergency tow vessels in service under lease on the West Coast, which provides us a significant capacity to prevent problems before they reach our shores, particularly when large vessels find themselves, not usually fishing vessels, which was the focus of your question, but when large vessels find themselves in difficulty, we've got better capability today to respond than we had just a short period ago. I could go on. There are other investments, the reopening and opening of new lifeboat stations across the north shore of Newfoundland, St. Anthony's, Old Perlican, for example. And one reopening that wasn't mentioned specifically earlier is the reopening of St. John's MRSC, which is a search and rescue coordination center, a sub-center from JRCC Halifax, which has also given us surge capacity when things on the water are more difficult.
So can I just follow up on that point? When you're working with the Canadian Forces, I have Greenwood in my riding as well, and I know on Dumping Day, the opening of the lobster season in southwestern Nova Scotia, it's a major operation coordinated between the Coast Guard, as I understand it, and also search and rescue units from Greenwood to patrol the maritime coastline. So I'm wondering how well coordinated that is in your view, and if there's anything more that could be done to ensure good results.
This is a seamless system in which Canadians can have a huge amount of confidence, and I think that was underscored in the recent Senate report on search and rescue called When Every Minute Counts. We work very closely with our forces colleagues, as you know, in the JRCC. Our operators and their operators sit in the same room. They can speak with each other as easily as you and I are speaking now, except they don't need the microphones. And when it comes to an event like Dumping Day, we are... as we'd say, we're lashed up. We have their assets deployed. We have our assets deployed. We have incident command in place. This is a system that works extremely well. It's a strong partnership. It's a model for other countries to follow, and they do come and visit us to see what they can take away. Could it be stronger? I think with the investments that we're making in both on the forces side and the Coast Guard side, I think the right investments are being made to keep this system strong.
Well, it's an impressive undertaking, and I commend the work that you do to ensure that our fishers are kept safe, especially at that time of year when it's extremely risky as far as getting boats out on the water. What if I could ask another question, just turning, I asked the Minister about the Atlantic Fisheries Fund, and we talked about the science and research component. I know that there's also a focus on export readiness and ensuring that processors are able to perhaps have the tools they need in order to expand markets around the globe. Do you have any comment, any of the officials, with regard to how that's going under the Atlantic Fisheries Fund as far as seeing new growth in emerging markets around the world?
I mean, certainly that's a key strand of the program, along with innovation as well. And I think one of the good things about the program is how the different strands work together, because if the industry is going to serve the increased demand for seafood around the world that we're seeing from both existing markets and emerging markets, it's going to need innovation, it's going to need new techniques, it's going to need labor-saving technology. And a lot of the projects that are rolling through the Atlantic Fisheries Fund right now are very much in that direction.
And how much time do I have? Okay, just quickly go back to my very first question to the Minister regarding small craft harbors, and I think everybody understands why those investments are so important. With regard to repair work that needs to happen on a timely basis, I know there's certain examples, at least in my riding and in other areas of Atlantic Canada and perhaps on the West Coast as well, where it does take some time to get those repairs done. Is there something that could be done to improve the efficiency with regard to not only identifying those, but getting the funds to the wharves to ensure safety?
I mean, we're always looking for opportunities for improvement. You know, our regional directors general and the area directors work very closely with the local communities to understand what the needs are. The needs can change from year to year. Of course, we have growth in industries like agriculture, for instance, that are also putting strain on capacity in the small craft harbors. So it's very much has to be a conversation with the local community to find out, you know, where are the pressure points, where's the deterioration happening, where are the areas of high priority. So it's just an ongoing conversation.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Fraser. Now to the Conservative side, Mr. Doherty for 7 minutes or less, please.
Thank you. Mr. Sargent, will you table with the clerk by the end of the day Wednesday any and all briefing notes you reviewed since becoming deputy related to the renewal of the Canadian Coast Guard fleet, including but not limited to light icebreakers, medium icebreakers, and heavy icebreakers?
So you're asking about information on the Canadian
Just
Coast
asking
Guard?
if you'll table any documents that you reviewed since becoming deputy.
So the government releases a lot of information about the National Shipbuilding Strategy. Of course, this is something that we do with Public Service and Procurement Canada as well as the Navy.
Is that a yes or no?
Not all of those documents can be released to the public, but the government does release quite a lot of information. I think in some of the early conversations as well, there's additional information.
Thanks, Mr. Sargent.
We'll
Mr.
provide.
Sargent, can you table with the clerk of the committee by the end of the day Wednesday any and all reports or briefing notes prepared by your department in the last 5 years relating to the Canadian Coast Guard using or integrating Arctic offshore patrol ships?
I think I'll give a same version of the answer that I just gave, which is that the government provides a lot of information about the National Shipbuilding Strategy. And you know, if there are specific areas where more information is required,
right.
we're certainly interested to know
Mr.
what those would
Sargent,
be.
I'll go on then. Mr. Sargent, my time is short. So media reports indicate that the department is about to be given 2 AOPs. Can you please provide by the end of the day Wednesday any and all published Canadian Coast Guard reports, department plans, or departmental budgets indicating that the AOPs are part of the Canadian Coast Guard Fleet Renewal Plan, as no one on this committee has seen such a plan?
So again, information on the National Shipbuilding Strategy is put out by Public Service and Procurement Canada. They're the department ultimately responsible for that.
Thanks. Mr. Sargent, can you table with the clerk by the end of the day Wednesday any briefing note or memo you have reviewed related to the total funds the department has set aside for the acquisition of the light icebreaker? And when will this vessel be acquired by the Canadian Coast Guard?
Okay, for questions on that specific vessel, I'll turn to the Commissioner. Or in fact, the Deputy Commissioner.
The light icebreaker is subject to a request for information that recently closed. With respect to when that vessel will be delivered, we're envisioning that will occur in the 2022 timeframe.
Great. What I was asking for is if Mr. Sargent could table with the clerk by the end of the day any briefing note or memo that he's related to the total funds the department has set aside for the acquisition of the light icebreaker. So we've answered part of it. When the vessel will be acquired by the Canadian Coast Guard, we want to know the funds that have been allocated for this light icebreaker.
Be happy to work with the committee clerk to provide that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Sargent, let's see if you can answer this one. Can you explain to the committee why there's been such a significant delay in the Canadian Coast Guard acquiring the offshore fisheries science vessels?
Well, building a ship, especially a new ship, I mean, it's a very complex undertaking. It's to be expected that schedules and budgets would have to be adjusted for the first class of ships built in a generation. Both shipbuilders in Canada renew their skills in estimating and costing.
All right.
The National Shipbuilding Strategy is really a long-term commitment to the shipbuilding industry.
Right.
Certainly looking.
Thanks, Mr. Sargent.
Continuing assessing our
We've heard the
progress on
talking points. Mr. Sargent, can you or will you be able to table with the clerk by the end of Wednesday the total allocated budget broken down by each vessel the department has set aside for these acquisitions?
Turn to Commissioner for that information.
We'd be happy to provide the budgets that have been published previously.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson. Mr. Sargent, will you be able to table with the clerk by the end of the day Wednesday the risk mitigation plan the department currently has for oil spill recovery?
Spill recovery?
We do. We would work with the clerk of the committee to provide that in a
Thank you,
timely
Mr.
way.
Hutchinson.
Yes.
I should probably just direct this next question or maybe not. Mr. Sargent, can you table with the clerk by the end of the day Wednesday any plans that you have, any management plans that you have to improve the efficiency of the Canadian Coast Guard? Did you want to defer that one too?
Sure.
It was directed at you, Mr. Sargent, as a deputy.
Well, I'll take guidance from the chair on that, but I think we're here to answer your questions to the best of our ability, so the official who's best placed to answer that will be the one to provide the best answer, I would submit.
We'd be pleased to provide the management plans that we have working with the clerk of the committee. I'm trying to think of specifics related to efficiency, and we'll try and put an emphasis on that as
Appreciate
we
that.
provide
Thank you.
information.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson. I'll turn my time over to Mr. Arnold for the rest.
Okay, thank you. 2 seconds while I get the Mr. Sargent. I don't see it anywhere, or I haven't picked up on it anywhere in the estimates yet, but unreported and unregulated fisheries have continuously been pointed to both in international waters, but even more specifically in some of our river systems. We previously brought this to the attention of the former deputy minister, who seemed quite interested in following up in this. Is there anything in your work plan that would look at unreported and unregulated fisheries? We know that in order to manage any fish stocks, you need to know not only what's there, but what's being taken. Have you done anything, or have you been briefed on any of that?
So you may know, I mean, there's a variety of elements to the question you've asked. Internationally, we're engaged in international fora around illegal unreported fishing. Domestically, in terms of, for example, ensuring that we're aware of the recreational catch, we have engaged in a series of consultations on the East Coast around establishing a recreational license, seeking the views from harvesters there, and that's an important step in terms of seeking further information. We're also engaged in developing electronic logbook programs to again further enhance
It's offshore. I said
information.
specifically about in-river fisheries, the unreported and unregulated fishing that's taking place in our river systems.
So, I mean, I think what you're getting at is in terms of the enforcement piece. Is that
to even get a handle on it? It seemed to be a foreign subject when I asked the question 6 or 8 months ago, but it developed a lot of interest. Has that interest even been brought to you in a briefing?
Well, we're certainly, I mean, our conservation and protection branch is very engaged in understanding the extent to which there is illegal or unreported fishing. They have many investigations underway. I can't comment on specific ones, obviously, but it's something we take very seriously. I mean, we need to understand what the total catch that's being taken out of a given river system is.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. It's gone over. Mr. Johns, for 7 minutes or less, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here. I'll start with the question I asked the minister earlier about the commercial fleet not being able to fish till August 20th. Obviously, a chunk of the sports sector is going to be catch and release, which is having a huge impact on their sector. We've asked for extended EI money to be supported through tourism or Destination Canada to help support the sector, compensation or money, releasing some of that Pacific Salmon Treaty money. Have you, Mr. Sargent, given recommendations to the minister of tools that he can use to help support the commercial and sports sector fleets?
So, obviously the advice and recommendations that we give to the minister are confidential, but what I can say is that we did a lot of consultations before this decision was done. As you know, we have a whole process set up to do that. Nevertheless, there are significant impacts, particularly on the commercial sector that you talked about. Certainly we're very conscious of that. I mean, the minister spoke about it quite eloquently beforehand.
One thing we hear often from the commercial fleet, especially Area G trawlers, is that $17 million still sitting there in the Pacific Salmon Treaty money, not collecting interest. Can you confirm that it's actually not collecting interest, and what is the plan with that money?
Would you know? Does it collect interest?
It's, to my knowledge, it doesn't collect interest at this point in time.
The intention of that money, I mean, back when you look at the history of it, it was intended to be there to compensate Area G trawlers, and we exhausted the buyback program. What is the plan right now with that money?
I think the minister did speak a little bit to that earlier in terms of saying that that is something that he's looking at. We don't have specific things
Heard
that
that for
we
a
can
few
say
months,
today.
and I heard that from Minister LeBlanc as well. So when he was the minister, speaking of the minister, you know, going back, I worked with Minister LeBlanc very closely, and the previous commissioner Jody Thomas on Coast Guard. We tabled a motion in the House around Coast Guard auxiliary, especially for remote and Indigenous communities. And Commissioner Hutchinson, maybe if we could just get an update. It was following the Leviathan disaster, and obviously those nations, and we've been working closely, but maybe you can provide us with an update of where that's at.
Thank you very much for that question. The Coast Guard Auxiliary, particularly for Indigenous people and for remote communities, has moved forward in a very meaningful way, both in the Arctic and on the West Coast since the implementation of OPP. For example, on the West Coast, we have worked with Indigenous communities to form a board to oversee the implementation of the auxiliary. We're now consulting with individual communities. It's not something we want to force on anybody. It's something we want to give communities the opportunity to participate in. Last year, the Community Boats program delivered 4 boats to communities that may not otherwise have been able to participate in the auxiliary. That increased by a significant number this year. I think I heard the number that we confirmed 13 boats this past year. And then in the Arctic, we have used the existing framework to expand auxiliary training into many communities. I've got the number 16 in my head. If I'm wrong on that, I'll correct it later, sir. And the last point, going back to the West Coast just for a second, our training programs have now trained over 50 Indigenous participants from 30 different communities, meaning 30 communities now have very capable, well-trained people to go and respond. And you may have heard this story before. I ask your forgiveness if I'm repeating it, but we trained some folks from the Prince Rupert area, and within weeks of them going back to their community, I was in one of our helicopters when they called us and said, we've just used our training to find somebody that we wouldn't have found otherwise.
And I do want to thank you also, because I was invited to attend the meeting last summer and join you and stay up with that. So I keep pursuing that. We urge you to do that.
Thank you.
To continue with that work. On the small crafts harbors, divestiture, I mean, as a West Coaster, we always look at it as kind of, you know, being bullied, you know, it's divest or destroy, right? So, I mean, we've asked Minister Garneau helped us back off on divesting the Lesquiti dock and the Banfield dock, and then Banfield thought, well, we better take it because we're worried they'll destroy it. Tofino took theirs years back, and now they're in real trouble trying to keep that dock maintained, and they don't have the money to do so. A lot of the Indigenous communities rely on that dock for transportation. They don't have the funding to maintain it. Is there a thought of, can you maybe tell me how you're going to go back to those communities that have taken docks, small craft harbors, through the divestiture, and now that they're kind of in trouble because they took it on worried that it was going to get destroyed? These are critical pieces of infrastructure, as you know.
So maybe one piece of clarification. So the amount of money that's in the estimates is an up to amount to give authority to do the grant. So it's part of our authorities process.
Sure.
In terms of the actual divestitures, my understanding is there's still planning underway. So if you go through, and I'll sort of defer to others that have more details on the planning, but if we go through and determine that divestiture isn't the right option, then we look at a different funding source.
Sure, and you know most of these communities don't have the capacity to take it on, right? And or in the long term, or you don't even have tools to collect revenue. A lot of them, the way they're designed.
And so for a small craft harbour divestiture, it's very much a case-by-case thing. It's not that we say to someone, you have to divest this harbour. We would only do it when we think that the capacity is there and where there's actually a desire from folks to do it.
I think I just have a minute left. Okay. Just wondering, haven't seen anything on plastics, any funding for cleanups? We've heard loud and clear that that needs to happen. Is there any money planned for that? And also, we haven't got a breakdown of the Southern Resident Killer Whale funding and where that's in terms of the schedule on that.
So there is 2.3 million in the estimates under the grant under Innovative Solutions Canada program that is related to plastics.
Perfect. So that there are eligible applicants for that. Okay.
Yeah, there's terms and conditions related to the program.
And SRKW, we haven't got anything on that. Is there? Are you able to send the committee the breakdown of what that looks like? That that amount of money, that the 167 million, and what the plan is with that?
Not at this point in time.
Now to Mr. Morrissey for 7 minutes or less, and I believe you're sharing your time. You can do that on your way.
Thank you. My question is possibly to Mr. Waddell, because you're under fisheries and licensing policy. One of the irritants I deal with in my office as a member of parliament is getting calls from fishermen who cannot get through to DFO offices as it relates to transferring simple licenses and applications. It's extremely frustrating. Come the weekend, they want to do it. You're getting close to starting the seasons. It's an issue I deal with a lot, and there's been no satisfactory resolution to it. It's unacceptable when somebody decides they're going to acquire a license. It could be a week before the fishing season starts, because again, the government of Canada says when you're going to start, and the answer, well, it could be 4 weeks before we get around to transferring it, which is a simple transfer. Could you comment on that briefly, because I got a number of questions.
Certainly. Thank you, sir. Part of that is we do have service standards I'd start with in terms of doing a transfer. We have a 30-day service standard.
I know you've had significant cutbacks in the past.
And we've buttressed that. Those, particularly in your riding, we've added to the TIGNISH, the Catch Certification Office, which is the same office.
Well, that's not the office that these transactions
It does
go
a lot
through.
of the online support for those using our national online licensing system. They all field the first volley of calls. Then they work with regional colleagues to prioritize those works and initiate transfers.
Yeah, I'm raising. I don't expect that, but it's something I would suggest the department look at. It's because it's been over the years a lot of reduction in frontline staff. You cannot walk into an office and get a person to talk to you. I get that complaint a lot. Simply said, no, we have nobody here to talk to you on the license, and that occurred in the previous government, not with ours. So it's something I'm asking you to do. The other one is small craft harbors funding. We've a couple $100 million. We made some announcements last year. In my own particular case, I don't think we got to tender stage yet, which is an inordinate amount of time from the time a project or funding is approved till it gets through all the design stages, finally get out to tender. I did an announcement in July of last year. We were advised earlier than that. Still hasn't gone to tender. That, in my opinion, is unacceptable at a time when we're attempting to get money out the door as a government. We make announcements and commitments to small craft harbors, and it just appears to be too slow to be getting funding out. Who wants to comment on that?
The only comment I'd offer on that, sir, is that my understanding is that 96% of projects that were announced in part of Budget 2018 funding have been initiated. I'm not aware.
What's your definition of initiated?
Begun.
What's your definition of begun? I'm talking about activity on the wharf. Don't give me that kind of an
and I
answer.
understand that full well, and I'm not
okay.
familiar with the specifics of the project you might be alluding to. So we could follow up.
Yes, and some are delayed because it's you lose credibility with your fishers. One, because I'm going to share my time with Mr. Finnegan, is I would like, and it's to the Coast Guard. You made reference on coordinating and the service that are available, and to my colleague, Mr. Fraser, when the lobster season opens in Southwest Nova Scotia. I've been working for some time in fishermen in PEI about getting better supports from coordinated with Coast Guard and D&D Search and Rescue, and we keep getting pushback. In the spring of the year, in the Gulf region, which affects PEI, Ile-de-Madeleine up to northern New Brunswick, the water temperature is around 0, versus the opening of the lobster season in Southwest Nova in November, the water temperature is probably around 10 Celsius. So you all know the impact of when you do the water. And there appears to be two standards when it comes to providing rescue service capability for opening of lobster seasons. It's something I would like to see the Coast Guard coordinate more with DND. I'm not saying reduce the service. The service in that area should be as adequate and strong as they are in Southwest Nova, and in my opinion, they're not. So could you provide to the committee what, between DND and search and rescue, what services and asset capability is available at the opening of that November lobster fishery?
Be happy to summarize that for the committee. I might note that the Coast Guard is adapting to climate change in real time. And as we go through shoulder seasons in particular, and shoulder seasons are the seasons between our summer ice breaking, our winter ice breaking, our winter ice breaking, and our summer ice breaking, we have to look very carefully at how we're deploying assets to make sure we have the maximum coverage that we can, because those seasons are becoming more unpredictable. The ice is more unpredictable. The water temperature is more unpredictable. But we would be happy to summarize our search and rescue posture in the seasons you're talking about.
I think you said you were either sharing or splitting. I know you're not splitting, you're sharing. You've got a minute and a half left, Mr. Finnegan.
Control the answers. I'd have several questions, but one particularly. The Atlantic Fisheries Fund was set up to do especially commercial fisheries. I know there's been some talk with the Higgs government in New Brunswick to possibly use a chunk of that money to do some restoration projects on the river, especially Miramichi, but other rivers. Can anybody tell me how? I think that's so. Can anybody tell me how those talks are going, and are they willing to partner on that fund sharing, and using that fund for those kind of projects?
Yeah, I'm not really in a position to comment on on any discussions like that.
But do you think that this is because right now there's no funding for project restoration, and there's a chunk of money there, and I know there's been some some negotiation, and we need some money to restore some of those river issues that we're facing.
I think we're well aware of the needs there in terms of habitat restoration, and certainly that is something that the government of New Brunswick is interested in, as are we. Whether we can do it under this particular program, though, is another question.
20 seconds. Traditional knowledge. There's supposed to be some money that's been transferred to use traditional knowledge in the management of the Miramichi River. Can you tell me what amount of money? Because I'm getting different answers from different people. Do we know what that fund is, and is it adequate?
Specifically on the Miramichi River, Jen, do you know?
I think we would have to get back to you on that.
Can you please? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finnegan. Now to Mr. Arnold for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for all being here. We'd really like to see you more often, but it seems to be like pulling teeth to get the minister and the officials here. Earlier in the minister's testimony, he referred to the BC Salmon Restoration and Innovation Fund, and that it being a parallel or a mirror of the Atlantic Fisheries Fund. That's an interesting comparison. The Atlantic Fisheries Fund, from what we've seen, most of the funding has been geared towards upgrading of equipment, processing, more efficiencies within the fishing and processing fleet. I beg to differ, but I don't believe that's necessary on the BC coast. In fact, the opposite may be true. We may be overfished for the state of our stocks. Can you tell me, is that the case? Was the minister incorrect in stating that it's going to mirror the Atlantic Fisheries Fund?
What I can tell you is that the two programs do differ, as you imply. The BC Salmon, it's a restoration fund. It's aimed at restoring fish habitat, salmon habitat for salmonids. So it doesn't have the same streams that the Atlantic Fisheries Fund or the Quebec Fisheries Fund has in terms of supporting industry.
Okay, because in the on the DFO website, it refers to innovation to encourage the development of new technologies to increase productivity. Is that productivity of the fishing fleet, or is that productivity of the streams and so on, of the
Are you
fish
referring to
stocks.
the Atlantic Fund or the BC Fund?
This is the BC Fund.
Right, so that's a productivity of the fisheries.
Productivity of the
Productivity is a technical term which
Okay, thanks for
describes
that.
how many new salmon basically arrive.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. We've all seen the measures being taken to help restore the southern resident killer whales. In doing some research, it's not easy to see that the southern resident killer whales are actually not at their lowest level ever. That was actually in 1976 when they were down around 71. And they rebounded to 98 by 1995, a fairly significant recovery over that time period, about 20 years. What allowed them to increase during that time? And with the measures that are being taken right now to restrict fisheries, commercial fisheries, recreational fisheries, are there equivalent measures being taken to address the pinniped predation situation? Because we've seen reports stating that harbor seal consumption in around that same time frames, the mid-70s to the mid-90s, and to actually current now, consumption of was 3.5 million individual Chinook. Now it's at 27.4 million individual Chinook. Are the same steps being taken to manage those competing predators as are being taken against fishing opportunities?
So there's a lot we don't know about southern resident killer whales and why their populations fluctuate. I mean, we do know that prey is and availability of quality prey is really important, but things like physical and acoustic disturbance, environmental contaminants, things like climate change, for instance, those are affecting not just the killer whales themselves, but also the prey that they feed on. With respect to the seals, or I guess the sea lions as well, and the pinnipeds, again, it's very complicated. I mean, sea lions, yes, they can eat some of the prey that the SOKW do, and to that extent they're a competitor. But sometimes they eat competitors' species to Chinook. So they eat cake, for instance, which are chasing the same fish that the Chinook are. Pinnipeds can also be themselves prey for not for southern resident killer whales, but for transient killer whales, which are also in some trouble. So that's why, as I think the Minister referred to, we do need to understand more the complex interactions between predator and prey in the.
Are there any measures being taken to address the pinniped populations as they are? They're tenfold what they were at those mid-70 numbers.
On the West Coast?
On the West Coast.
Specifically. We need to really understand the science better.
You're not doing anything, in other words?
Well, what we're doing is we're doing the science, and we're
more
actually
studies, but nothing on the ground.
Bring everyone together in order to understand what the best way forward is to look at this
rather than address the probable largest competitor for food. You're doing nothing on the ground.
And we need to understand whether that's really the case, and what would happen if we were to take measures. How significant that is compared to the other things that affect southern resident.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold.
To the fishermen on the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Now back to the government side. Mr. Hardy, for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What's the latest on the Nathan E. Stewart? Have we cleaned that up? Have we recovered everything there?
Yes, in a word, yes. The operation is done. There is some ongoing conversation about what residual health impacts there may be, but that's really not a Coast Guard lead or a DFO lead, but the cleanup is done, the operation is done.
Well, we'll look a little further down the table then and find out, in fact, what those residual health impacts were, because it would appear that, there was some contamination of, of certain beds where the local indigenous people were harvesting. Do we know anything about the recovery of those contaminated sites?
I believe we would have to get that information from our Pacific Regional Director General.
Well, I wouldn't mind
yes.
that information being submitted to us, because it's something that we need to follow. One of the things that we did hear from the people who live there, and this is when we were out actually inspecting Smallcraft Harbor, they said that they could have, based on their local knowledge, mitigated the damage caused by the Nathan E. Stewart, but they were forbidden doing so both by the Coast Guard and through workers' compensation in British Columbia. This all goes back to something that we've heard, and our colleagues from the Conservative side referenced it as well, and that is the use of local knowledge and basically, trusting them to know what they're talking about when they come up with a suggestion, etc. And I'm wondering if, for instance, the reopening of the Kitsilano Coast Guard base and the training that's going on there, are we in fact doing a better job of understanding the local knowledge, as well as giving our Indigenous people the tools and the training to do this work, but to trust them a little bit more when they come to us and say, look, we know how to fix this thing, and to stop getting in their way when they want to do it.
Thank you for that question. Under the Ocean Protection Plan, we are working diligently to reframe the relationship that you've just referred to. So one piece of that is regional response planning, and I know that sounds like a bit of a bureaucratic term, but in fact, our intent under regional response planning is to have environmental response planning that is unique in the world. And it will be unique, and it is unique because of its ecosystem approach, for one, but also because it explicitly seeks to incorporate traditional knowledge from Indigenous and coastal communities. In one of my previous answers, I was talking about the search and rescue training that we've done on the West Coast, and it put me in mind of a video that you can find online of one of those training sessions, and you hear an Indigenous person talking about how special it is to bring what he knows about that area into the training that we've provided. And I use it only as an example to say that this is more than talk. This is actually happening. So yes, our training is the formal environmental response training, but we do that with open hearts, open minds, open ears to hear what our Indigenous partners care to share with us. We want to work together, and as I said earlier, regional response planning is the framework that allows us to bring all of that together. Yes, in a word, we need to trust them, and we also need to win their trust for what we bring to the on-water
I wish
operation.
you well in those efforts, because I think it is really important. The National Energy Board was called in to do additional review with respect to the Trans Mountain expansion to look at the water side issues, which I don't think were really even considered when the first reviews were taking place. Was the Coast Guard consulted by the NEB in the process of doing that review? And if so, what did you tell them?
We have been involved with the NEB review from the early days of TMX. We've provided a lot of information. It would be difficult for me to summarize either from the first consideration or from this consideration everything.
Your confidence, your level of confidence with the safety?
Your time is up. I'm sorry, you can't jump in like that. Mr. Sopak, for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thanks. Regarding the seals, I find your response absolutely appalling. The data is really clear. I'm looking at an article that one of your staff did in the Puntledge River in 2010. Dr. Olesiuk. 3 dozen seals had killed 10,000 adult chum salmon in the fall spawning run. There was a study in Scotland. Also, you talk about Indigenous knowledge. The Stolo Tribal Council has repeatedly asked for permits so fishermen can legally shoot seals. If you cared about Indigenous knowledge, you would approve that. Also in Scotland, a study found that taking a single seal out of the Morrison River increased the sport salmon catch by 17%. Mr. Sargent, you will never get certainty in the natural world. Your department has been conducting research for 100 years, yet you're all afraid to use the research to actually do something about it. So, and I would urge you to take the advice of this committee that has recommended a seal harvest over and over and over again, unanimously, yet you continue not to do it. I find that appalling. Mr. Morell and Mr. Burns, I want to talk to you about the Miramichi. The smallmouth bass issue, I've fished it a few times. The smallmouth bass issue there, as you know, is critical. The Miramichi Salmon Association has come up with a plan to use rotenone to eliminate the smallmouth bass in the Miramichi. This is one of the least toxic fish toxicants you could ever have. In fact, Aboriginal people in South America used it to collect food. Yet you continue to refuse to allow the elimination of smallmouth bass from that particular lake. If smallmouth bass get into the Miramichi, they're a non-native predator there. That's the end of that multi-million-dollar salmon fishery. How could you be so obtuse?
So the only thing I can say is probably just repeat the answer that my colleague from Science provided to you last week, that they're conveying some activities to remove the small mouth bass from the tributaries of the Miramichi River, and it's being proven to be somewhat efficient in a way that also it does not have a negative impact on the ecosystem. But as I told you, this is not my sector, so I can repeat that to you. But the only thing I know is that this information has been provided to me as one of the measures that is being put in place to try to reduce the interaction between the smallmouth.
I don't buy that for a minute. There has never been a single case of a non-native invasive harmful species ever eliminated by fishing. Every smallmouth bass female, as you know, lays thousands and thousands of eggs, and when the fry hatch, they're extremely small. They'll go through any fish fence. This is a time bomb waiting to happen. Yet you're more than happy to use fish toxicants on the lamprey eel in the Great Lakes. You think that's a great idea, to use a chemical to eliminate them. The track record of rotenone it goes back 50 to 60 years. It's been used countless times to manage fish communities. And again, I think your decision is completely wrong. Frankly, what I find about your department, the higher ups in your department, you think your clients are the fish. They're not. Your clients are the people who use the fish. That should be your primary concern. The Atlantic salmon fishery in New Brunswick has been estimated at worth $135 million, thousands of jobs. And speaking of Atlantic salmon, our committee produced a unanimous report, 17 recommendations, none have been followed. Why is that?
So we certainly see the role of the Minister and the Department as being stewards of a natural resource that all Canadians can use and enjoy. And in order to ensure that resource continues for the future and for future generations as well, we have to think about impacts not just today, but down the line.
No lectures on sustainability, thank you.
No, but I just want to give you the context for decisions that we make. What was the last part of it?
Why have you not implemented the 17 recommendations in the unanimously approved Atlantic salmon report from this committee?
Well, we can get back to you on the status of the implementation of this.
The minister did with a letter, and we had the word restore and replenish many times in that report, yet restoring Atlantic salmon was not even included in the minister's response. That's appalling.
Thank you, Mr. Solpuck. Now to the government side. Mr. Rogers, for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to focus on the lifeboat stations, Mr. Hutchinson, that you talked about, particularly because one of these are in my riding in Old Portican. I know there's designated spots like Twilling Gate and St. Anthony, and I know there's been some great progress made. Harvesters and mariners and people in the recreational sailing industry and commercial industry, as well as harvesters, are really pleased to see this new facility and the security and the services it's going to provide for these mariners. So when do you anticipate that this lifeboat station will be completed and fully operational?
That's an excellent question, and that's a date I normally have at the top of my brain. I don't right at the moment. We're fully operational next season, is that correct?
Yeah, fully, it's going to ramp up. The station won't be ready until next season, but we'll have temporary.
It'll be fully operational next season. We'll have temporary resources in place in the meantime.
So when you say next season, you mean in the fall?
Springtime next year.
Springtime? Okay. I know construction seems to be going really well, and people in that particular community and along that coastline are excited about it. What about the Chullingate site and St. Anthony? St. Anthony, I understand, is just a renovation of and improvements to the current site, so Chullingate is a new site as well.
It's on the same time frame, and St. Anthony has already received its new offshore search and rescue vessel, and the renovations to the building, I believe, are done in the next 12 months. This summer, it's fully operational.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Received any particular notification of the official opening of the St. John's Rescue Center that was returned and restored to St. John's after it was closed by the previous government, amid great disappointment and protest by harvesters, by the mariners, by certain individuals like Merv Wiseman, for example. I can recall championing that cause. It was also a major issue during the last federal election. So are you aware of when there might be some kind of official event or a grand opening announcement for that particular facility, which is going to provide a crucially important service to the East Coast, particularly about to Newfoundland and Labrador?
My recollection is that we did have an event for the MRSC, and I will get you the date that occurred. And then with the new base that's opening, you see the new Southside base. My sister tweeted me the other night and told me it was all lit up and the construction's going very well. We're in the planning process now for a grand opening date for that.
Yeah, and again, thank you for that. We're just excited about the fact that it's going to be reopened, of course, and would love to have an opportunity to probably attend that kind of an event. When you look at the St. Anthony and the Chullingate facilities, I think about the kind of service that you as Coast Guard provide in terms of ice breaking, during the springtime. We've had major ice conditions again this spring. I'm assuming that's not going to be a part of your duties, that the regular bigger boats, icebreakers like Louis Saint Laurent and others will continue on with the kind of schedule they're on nowadays.
The opening of the lifeboat stations and those assets will have no bearing. We will continue to deploy heavy assets for ice breaking as needed through, for the ferry routes, for the opening of fisheries, as we have in the past.
And will these lifeboat stations be 24-hour staffed, 24-hour services, or on call? How would that operate?
They'll have the same posture as our other lifeboat stations, which gives you effective 24/7 coverage, but it doesn't mean that we have people sitting at tables up all night all the time. But you will have effective 24/7 coverage between people who are at the station and people who are on very short standby to return to the station if there's a call.
With a very short response time?
Yes, we're away from the dock in 30 minutes in all cases.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
If I may just clarify that. Yeah. Our official response time is 30 minutes away from the dock. We actually average about 6 minutes away from the dock, and that will continue.
That's impressive. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rogers. You did mention you were going to share or split your time, but I guess you forgot that. But I'll go to Mr. Johns now for 3 minutes or less, please.
Oh, thank you. Just a quick question around the main estimates for Indigenous participation in commercial fisheries. Can you tell me how much of the 78.8 million now is allocated for PIC fee?
Jen, you should have that.
I do have that. If you just give me a minute to
Sure.
find it.
I'm sure the honourable member will do that.
Do you want me to come back to it?
If you can't find it, I'm sure.
Great. Yeah, you could get that to me. That'd be
we'll do that,
fantastic. The again, just I didn't get an answer on that. You came up. How did you come up with $17.1 million for the British Columbia Salmon Restoration and Innovation Fund? Because the needs are serious, and we're in this desperate situation. How did you determine that this was the amount you're going to roll out of the funds that are committed, the $142 million? I believe. Why 17 only, and especially at a time when people are out of work, fishers aren't able to get to work, and this is an opportunity actually to mobilize people. And I just have to state like literally we have thousands of people in British Columbia. Most of them are in there are sports fishers or recreation fishers or commercial fishers that are doing that work, that restoration work. This is an opportunity to empower those people and mobilize people up and down the coast that haven't been resourced for years. So $17 million isn't going to do it. You know, really, we need to get a lot of money out the door, and there's a lot of damage that we need to catch up on fixing.
I mean, we're working as hard as we can on the BC Salmon Restoration Fund. As you say, it's a lot of activity in local communities. It's actually a way for local communities to participate in rebuilding the healthy fish stocks in British Columbia. This is a joint program with the government of British Columbia. It's also an application-based program. So we put out a call for projects. Then we in the province have to go through and then decide which ones we want to do. So there's always going to be a certain amount of time required to do that. But your question is very well taken, sir. We do want to move as fast as we
hoping
can.
we'll get another round. I think I have 45 seconds left, and if that's
exactly.
Mr. Chair. So I
Yes,
know
no.
that we closed, well, not we. I certainly would have closed MCTS in Comox or Ucluelet or Vancouver. In fact, we were very much opposed to it. But you did close the one in Ucluelet, and I know that the community has lost those jobs. They've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. They'd like to get that building as a piece of a compensation piece, if you want to call it, that could be used for higher learning and create jobs and support the local economy, working with First Nations, working with education around a marine economy. Can you maybe provide an update? Is that going to go through? Is the government going to transfer that building to the community?
We'd be happy to come back with the plans for that building. I don't have them in front of me.
Just know it's costing a lot of money as an empty building right now, so yeah.
And while we're speaking about MCTS, to your earlier question, we had the numbers in front of us. We didn't have the totals. The savings per year from the MCTS consolidation is running $10 to $11 million a year.
Should be no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Thank you, Mr. Johns. You're trying to slip in another one there. I'll say thank you to our witnesses for giving us 2 hours of their time today. Greatly appreciated by the committee, and the information you provided, I'm sure, will be of great value. So again, thank you for your time, and I'm sure we'll see some of you back again in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, no, we haven't got time. We haven't got time.
So, you want to suspend, so
What?
you want to suspend for a few minutes?
Okay, we'll suspend for 2 minutes to clear the room, and then we have some motions on this that we have to get passed.